Chapter 3, Part 2, Harmony Through Sacrifice Scenes, 311-320. Scene. The battlefield of Kurukshetra still rumbles with tension. Chariots stand ready, conchas have sounded, and the air is heavy with the weight of history. Arjuna, trembling, has asked his questions and received Krishna's replies about the futility of escape and the necessity of action. But Krishna now broadens the canvas. He lifts Arjuna's eyes from his personal grief to the cosmic order that sustains the universe itself. What Arjuna thought was merely his private crisis is revealed to be part of a greater law, a wheel turning since the beginning of creation. Krishna begins to speak not only of Arjuna's duty, but of the principle that holds the worlds together: yajña, sacrifice, offering, reciprocity. Then, in the Vedic imagination, yajña was the heartbeat of existence. It was not just fire rituals performed by priests, it was a principle woven into life itself. Farmers offered grains to the fire, and rains returned as blessing. Kings offered protection to their subjects, and loyalty flowed back as support. Teachers offered knowledge freely, and disciples returned with service and gratitude. Even nature itself was sacrifice. Rivers gave water, trees gave fruit, animals gave labor, the sun gave light. Humanity's role was to honor this chain of giving with reverence and offering. At the dawn of creation, says Krishna, the Creator shaped mankind together with yajña, declaring, "By this shall you prosper. Let this be the source of mutual blessing." Life was not meant to be transaction, calculating, bargaining, but participation in a cosmic dance where each gives and receives. For Arjuna, hearing this on the battlefield is startling. His despair has shrunk his vision to his own pain. But Krishna widens the frame. Your action or inaction is not isolated. It either sustains or disrupts the great circle of giving. Now, how piercing this feels in our own age. We live in a culture obsessed with consumption. The question that drives families, companies, nations is often, what can I get? How much can I own? How quickly can I climb? Yet the results are everywhere. Families breaking, teams collapsing, nations quarreling. Why? Because the cycle of contribution is broken. Everyone demands, few give. Relationships thrive not when both ask, what will I receive? But when both ask, what can I contribute? Marriages, friendships, and partnerships collapse when yajña ends and transactions begin. Workplaces, too, become toxic when employees see only paychecks and leaders see only profits. But they flourish when each side gives. Leaders offering vision, workers offering effort, both united in service. Even nations prosper not when citizens exploit resources selfishly, but when all sacrifice personal greed for the common good. The wisdom of Krishna here is radical, even revolutionary. The foundation of harmony is not greed, but sacrifice. Consider the environment. We breathe the air, drink the water, eat the food of the earth. But how often do we give back? When trees are cut without replanting, rivers polluted without reverence, soils drained without renewal, the yajña is broken. The earth, like the devas Krishna describes, withholds blessings. Climate crisis, natural disasters, scarcity, these are modern reminders of the same eternal law. And in our personal lives too, have you noticed? The happiest people are rarely the richest takers. They are those who live as givers. Parents who sacrifice for children, volunteers who serve quietly, leaders who see their role as responsibility rather than privilege. They live aligned with the cosmic rhythm. Focus. The focus of this section is breathtakingly practical. Work as offering, not as transaction. The Gita is showing us that every choice we make, what we eat, how we work, how we treat others, either sustains or disrupts the great wheel of harmony. When you live for contribution, you align with the rhythm of the universe itself. When you hoard or exploit, you break the wheel and invite chaos. Krishna is about to take Arjuna and us through the anatomy of this cycle, verse by verse. It is not abstract. It is as real as the food you eat, the water you drink, the family you belong to. To live in yajña is to live in alignment with life itself. 311. Mutual nourishment, the law of reciprocity. Scene. Krishna declares, by sacrifice you will nourish the gods, and the gods will in turn nourish you. Thus, nourishing one another, you shall prosper. Through this harmony, all desires shall be fulfilled. Then, for Arjuna, this is not theory but culture. In Vedic life, devas were not remote idols. They were living forces of nature, Sun, rain, fire, wind, these sustained life. Humans honored them through yajña, and in return, nature flourished. This was not bribery, but balance, a cycle of give and receive. When humans broke the cycle and only took, droughts, famines, and suffering followed. Krishna tells Arjuna, harmony depends on this mutual nourishment. Your duty, your sacrifice, is part of the cosmic ecology. Now, look around today. Our gods are ecosystems, communities, and institutions. If we give back to them, they give back to us. Care for the environment, and it returns abundance. Care for your family, and it gives support. Care for your team, and it gives loyalty. But when we exploit, polluting rivers, draining relationships, hoarding resources, the gods dry up. Prosperity vanishes. Krishna's words resonate as prophecy for modern times. Only reciprocity sustains. Focus. Nourish what nourishes you. Stop living as a taker. Be a contributor. The more you pour into life, the more life pours into you. That is yajña, the law of reciprocity woven into the universe. 3:12. The thief of creation. Seen. Krishna warns sharply. The gods nourished by sacrifice will give you desired enjoyments, but he who enjoys these gifts without offering in return is verily a thief. Then, this statement cuts like an arrow. Selfish enjoyment without return is not innocence, it is theft. The sun shines, the river flows, the farmer tills the land. To consume without gratitude or contribution is to steal. In the Vedic worldview, earth and life were not possessions but trusts. You receive them to use, honor, and pass on. Arjuna is told, one who takes without giving back is not neutral, but a thief against the cosmos. Now, how striking this feels today. We exploit forests, oceans, soil, and still call it progress. We binge on digital content, relationships, or wealth without gratitude. In families, when one member only takes affection but never gives, the bond cracks. In organizations, when employees or leaders drain but do not serve, collapse begins. Krishna unmasks the truth. Selfish consumption is theft, whether of nature, society, or love. Focus. Are you a contributor or a thief? Every enjoyment is a gift of countless unseen sacrifices. To honor them, give back. Gratitude and service transform consumption into worship. Without it, we rob the very world that sustains us. 3.13. The sacredness of shared food. Seen. Krishna continues, the righteous who eat food after sacrifice are freed from all sins, but those who cook for themselves alone, verily, they eat sin. Then, food was sacred in Arjuna's world. Before meals, offerings were made to fire, to ancestors, to guests. Eating was never private indulgence, it was gratitude. To share and consecrate food was to honor the wheel of life, earth, rain, farmers, animals, devas. Krishna reminds Arjuna, to eat selfishly is to eat sin because it ignores the chain of sacrifice that produced it. To share and honor is to be purified. Now, what about us? Today, food is often rushed, wasted, hoarded. We forget that every bite is the fruit of countless hands and forces. Eating in isolation, without gratitude or sharing, disconnects us from the wheel. But when families eat together, when meals begin with a prayer, when we share even a little with those in need, food becomes worship. Gratitude turns survival into sanctity. Focus. Eating can be sin, or it can be worship. When you hoard, you bind yourself. When you share and give thanks, you align with yajña. Every meal is an opportunity to choose, selfishness or sanctity. 3.14. The circle of life, food, rain, and sacrifice. Seen, Krishna unfolds a grand vision. From food beings are born, from rain food is produced, from sacrifice rain comes, from action arises sacrifice. Then, in Arjuna's time this was both philosophy and ecology. Life comes from food, food from rain from sacrifice, and sacrifice from action. The circle is complete only when each link is honored. If people abandon yajña, rains decline, food wanes, beings suffer. Arjuna is shown that his war is not just a personal struggle. His duty feeds the cycle of harmony that sustains the world. To refuse action is not neutrality, it is breaking the chain. Now, how visible this is in our age. Environmental collapse mirrors the breaking of this wheel. Deforestation dries clouds, rains falter, crops fail, hunger spreads. When humans exploit nature selfishly, the food rain action cycle fractures. Even in smaller spheres, families and teams collapse when members take but do not give. Krishna's verse is timeless law. The circle of life thrives only when action becomes sacrifice. Focus. Your choices sustain or disrupt the great wheel. Every action is either nourishment or theft. Remember, food depends on rain, rain on harmony, harmony on offering. Keep the wheel moving by living as a giver. 3:15 Action rooted in the eternal. Scene. Krishna deepens the mystery. Know that action comes from Brahma, and Brahma arises from the imperishable. Therefore, the all-pervading Brahman is ever established in sacrifice. Then, for Arjuna, this is breathtaking. Action is not a random human compulsion. It flows from Brahma, the creative force, which itself emerges from the eternal imperishable. Every act aligned with sacrifice is rooted in the divine. The sage, the king, even the warrior, when acting selflessly, participates in Brahman. Arjuna is told, "Your arrows, if offered for dharma, are not destruction, but harmony with the eternal." Now, this truth shines today. We divide life into worldly and spiritual. Krishna erases the division. Teaching, farming, serving, leading, even fighting for justice, all are sacred when offered as yajña. What matters is not the outer act, but the inner orientation. Work offered as duty becomes divine. Work clung to for ego becomes bondage. Focus. Every act can be holy when aligned with offering. Stop dividing life into sacred and secular. Live as if every responsibility is participation in the eternal. That is yoga in action. 3.16 Breaking the wheel, a life wasted. Scene. Krishna warns with force. He who does not follow this wheel of sacrifice, living in sin, rejoicing in the senses, he lives in vain, O Partha. Then, this is a sobering image. Those who reject the wheel and live only for pleasure cut themselves off from the source of life. They consume without contribution. They enjoy without offering. They break the harmony of creation. Such a life may appear rich, but it is wasted. Arjuna is reminded. To abandon yajña is to betray not only duty, but existence itself. Now, do we not see this in our world? Self-indulgence sold as lifestyle. Consumerism that drains without giving back. Families disintegrate when members live only for themselves. Teams collapse when players chase credit but ignore contribution. Nations crumble when citizens demand rights but forget responsibilities. A life of selfish pleasure looks glamorous but feels hollow because it breaks the wheel. Focus. Refusing to give is refusing to live. Break the wheel and you break yourself. A selfish life may dazzle for a moment, but it is vain at its core. True living is participation in the circle of harmony. 3:17 The self-sufficient sage. Scene. Krishna offers the contrast, but the one who delights in the self, satisfied in the self, content in the self alone, for him there is no duty. Then, for Arjuna this is paradox. Most are bound by the wheel of sacrifice, but the realized sage transcends it. He needs nothing from outside. He does not depend on possessions, relationships, or even duty. His life flows naturally, without compulsion. Janaka ruled with detachment. Vyasa wrote epics, yet lived in fullness. Such sages act not from need, but from abundance. Now, today, this inspires us to aim higher. Most of us work to fill emptiness. The wise work because they overflow. Imagine being so anchored in yourself that you are free of cravings. Then work becomes play, service becomes joy, life becomes worship. You no longer act to prove, to gain, to impress. You act because you are whole. Focus. Freedom is not escape from duty, but rising above need. Be rooted in yourself so deeply that you give, not to gain, but because you overflow. That is the mark of the true sage. 3:18 The free but still acting sage. Scene. Krishna describes the perfected soul. For him there is nothing to gain by action, nothing to lose by inaction, nor does he depend on any being. Then, this is the portrait of a liberated sage. He acts, but not for reward. He refrains, but not from fear. Nothing adds to him, nothing subtracts. Unlike the ordinary man, he is not bound by outcomes, nor dependent on others for validation. Yet such a sage often continues to act, not from need, but from compassion and duty. Janaka ruled his kingdom, though inwardly free. Vyasa composed the epics, though content in himself. Their lives remind Arjuna that true freedom is not in escaping action, but in acting without bondage. Now, this ideal shines for us today. How often do we act just to prove ourselves, to earn, to gain approval? Our work is colored by craving, but the wise act from fullness. They give because they overflow. Teachers who share knowledge without desire for fame, leaders who serve without thirst for power, parents who love without conditions. These are modern sages. Their actions uplift, but they remain free. Focus. True freedom means being untouched by outcomes. Even while acting, you stay whole. Even while silent, you remain complete. When you need nothing, your actions become gifts to the world. 19. Duty as the path to the supreme. Scene. Krishna instructs firmly, therefore always perform your duty without attachment, for by performing action without attachment, one attains the supreme. Then, this is the essence of karma yoga. Action is not the problem. Attachment is. When duty is done without clinging to result, it purifies the heart and elevates the soul. Arjuna is reminded, fight not for reward, not from fear, not for pride. Fight because it is your dharma. When performed in this spirit, action leads to liberation. Now, in our time, burnout comes from chasing outcomes. We crave recognition, promotion, applause. But imagine doing work as offering, not transaction. A doctor heals not for fees but for service. A leader guides not for power but for responsibility. A worker contributes not for praise but for the joy of contribution. This spirit transforms action into worship. Focus. Do not ask what you gain. Ask what is your duty. Do it without chains of expectation. That path leads beyond success and failure into freedom itself. 320. Janaka's example, acting for the world. Scene. Krishna seals this section with history. Indeed, by action alone, Janaka and others attained perfection. You should act too, for the welfare of the world. Then, Arjuna knew Janaka's story well. Though enlightened, Janaka ruled wisely, fulfilling his duties as king. He was detached inwardly, yet fully engaged outwardly. By action, he reached perfection, showing that liberation is not escape, but engagement. Krishna reminds Arjuna, even if you feel detached, act for the sake of others. Leaders especially cannot abandon duty, because their choices shape generations. Now, this echoes today with great force. Leaders in families, communities, companies, and nations carry responsibility. Their example inspires or weakens others. A father who shirks responsibility sets a model of avoidance. A leader who serves selflessly creates generations of strength. Great figures of history, from Gandhi to Mandela, could have lived quietly in peace, but they chose to act for the welfare of others. That is karma yoga lived in flesh and blood. Focus. Your duty is not only about you. Others depend on your actions. By serving without attachment, you uplift the world. Like Janaka, act as an example. In doing so, you walk the path to perfection. Summary. The Wheel of Sacrifice. Scene. The clamor of Kurukshetra fades as Krishna unveils a larger truth. Life is not a set of isolated events. It is a living wheel that turns only when giving and receiving move together. Arjuna's dilemma about action is reframed inside this cosmic ecology. Food nourishes beings. Rain nourishes food. Sacrifice invites rain. Action sustains sacrifice. Behind this wheel stands the imperishable. Arjuna hears that his choice to act or not to act is never private. It either keeps the world's harmony turning or stalls it. He is not only a warrior on a field, he is a participant in the universe's cycle of reciprocity. Then, Krishna teaches that humans and devas prosper through mutual nourishment. When people live in the spirit of yajña, the forces of nature respond in abundance. When people take without offering, scarcity follows. To consume gifts without returning gratitude or service is not neutrality. Krishna calls it theft. Even food becomes pure only when it is shared. To cook for oneself alone is to eat the fruit of selfishness. The chain is precise. Beings arise from food. Food depends on rain. Rain prospers where sacrifice is honored. Sacrifice depends on action that is rightly oriented. Action itself is rooted in Brahma, and Brahma arises from the imperishable. This means every duty, when offered, participates in the divine. Ignore this wheel, and life becomes hollow. Those who live for the senses alone appear successful for a time, yet they move against the direction of life and end in futility. In contrast, The realized sage is full in the self. He neither needs to act nor to avoid action. Even so, the wise often continue to work for the welfare of the world. Janaka is the historical proof. Perfection came to him through action that was free of attachment, and his example uplifted his people. Now, these verses speak directly to our age of burnout, consumerism, and fracture. Families weaken when members ask only what they will get. Teams falter when individuals chase credit but avoid responsibility. Communities decline when citizens expect benefits while neglecting duties. Nature withholds when rivers are polluted, forests stripped, and soils exhausted. We see the results in anxiety, division, and ecological stress. Krishna's remedy is not escape. It is participation with a purified intention. Treat work as offering. Treat leadership as service. Treat relationships as shared stewardship. When you eat, remember the chain that made that meal possible. When you earn, remember the systems and people that enabled your effort. When you lead, remember those who will inherit the effects of your decisions. The wheel turns smoothly wherever gratitude meets contribution. Even ordinary tasks become sacred when offered for the common good. Cooking for a family becomes an altar. Teaching becomes a gift to the future. Building a product becomes service to unseen users. Law, medicine, farming, logistics, caregiving, and creative work can all be yajña when the heart lets go of possession and clings to purpose. Focus. Live inside the wheel, not outside it. Ask different questions. Not what can I extract, but what can I offer? Not how can I win, but how can I serve? Not how quickly can I rise, but how deeply can I contribute? Begin close to home. Share meals with gratitude. Give back to the people and places that nourish you. Bring a spirit of offering to your daily work. If you lead, set the tone by example, since others will copy your posture more than your words. If you feel inwardly free, act anyway for the welfare of the world. This is how Janaka moved. If you feel inwardly bound, act without attachment so that action itself purifies you. This is how karma yoga works. In both cases, the medicine is the same. Work as offering, not as transaction. When you align with the wheel of sacrifice, you receive a peace that transaction cannot buy and a power that ambition cannot manufacture. The world around you becomes lighter because your presence begins to nourish it. The world within you becomes steadier because your identity is no longer tied to taking. Harmony returns because you are turning the wheel.